Good afternoon. I'm at MetroHealth Outpatient Pediatric Clinic with pediatrician Dr. Robert Needlman. Dr. Needlman, it is an honor to be with you here today. You know, I've known you for many years, and as I was reflecting on this in our interview, I thought it's been 15 years. We have a history of when you were on the board, when I was a principal, and our career paths have crossed throughout the years. And so I know what a vital pediatrician you are to our community, but not only our community, within our country. And so when I think about you, I think about what a respected authority you are on child development, having updated the last 3 editions to the classic parenting book, Dr. Spock's Baby and Child Care, which, by the way, are among the best-selling 3 editions. And so I know you're too humble to mention that, but I'd like to tell the audience about you. However, what many people may not realize is you instill a sense of hope in our children and our families because of your genuine care and concern. And I've known that since I've known you. And so when I look at you and your work, I think this has been your life's work. And so we want to hear a little bit about that. So tell me about child's development in the first 3 years of life, especially the brain of a young child. What's happening in a child's brain development?
Oh, everything is happening. But really critically in those first 3 years, children are learning how to relate to other people. And the big hallmark for that, for most kids, is the development of language. So that by 3, they are really able to share thoughts and understand ideas back and forth with other people. It's really an astonishing development when you think about where they started out as babies. So now they're connected to the whole world of ideas. And that's the foundation for their going on to succeed in school and to succeed in life.
So we hear a great deal about reading, how important it is and how critical it is to read aloud to our children. So does reading aloud really affect a child's brain development to that magnitude?
It does in a lot of different ways. I want to start, though, by backing up and saying that there are plenty of people who weren't read to who turned out to be perfectly fantastic, right? So it's not the only way. It's just a very, very powerful way that's accessible to a lot of people. And that was the real insight for us in Reach Out and Read, was that reading aloud was a way that lots and lots of parents could learn how to give their young children the sort of brain nutrition that they need. And when I think about brain nutrition, it's healthy food and healthy sleep, but it's also rich stimulation, especially with language, especially with words and ideas. And that's what reading aloud really is. It's a rich diet of words and ideas, and often coupled with beautiful pictures. You put all those things together with the love of a parent, which is really the secret sauce, then you get this powerful, powerful mixture that propels kids' development forward.
So when would you say, when should a parent begin reading to his or her child, parent or caregiver?
My own deep feeling about this is whenever the parent feels moved to. So parents who love reading should share that love with their infants before they're born. They should be reading to each other. And it doesn't really matter what you read, but we know that babies in utero, before they're born, hear the voices around them. So that if they hear mommy reading to daddy and daddy reading to mommy, or however the parents fall out, that's part of what they're learning even before they're born. And once they're out in the world, if parents who love them also love books and reading, that becomes part of the milieu that surrounds that child. And they just grow up in a world that has literacy and literature. If a parent isn't in love with reading themselves, they have to begin to fake it a little bit. And for those parents, something else like talking and singing is probably most important early on. But by the time a baby is about 6 months of age, they really should be able to have a book that they can hold, move from hand to hand, put in their mouths, bang on their foreheads. Books should be a part of that. And even a parent who doesn't love reading for themselves can give that to their child. And so even though we talk about reading out loud is one piece of that.
Yes.
It has a special sort of richness to it because they're beautiful pictures, because
Yes.
the books are interesting, because parents bring to it their hopes and dreams for their child.
Right.
And when a parent sees a 6-month-old baby getting excited about the book,
They get excited.
they get excited. They begin to imagine, if they haven't already, this
Right.
little person growing up to be a scholar, a student,
Right.
going to college, right? And it's that kind of imagination, seeing that brain at work, even before the brain is really doing it,
Right.
that drives kids forward.
They're nourishing it, as you say.
That's right. That's right.
So you mentioned this program called Reach Out and Read. And I know it was created decades ago. And I hear something about our doctors and our nurses are passing out books. Talk to me about what it is, how it was founded, by whom, and how does it benefit our families?
Well, you're an educator, so I think you'll be happy to know that Reach Out and Read came out of a collaboration between educators and pediatricians. And I happen to be lucky to be one of those pediatricians. I was learning from early childhood educators, and together we took books to the kids who were in the hospital. This was in Boston, at Boston City Hospital.
Okay.
It's now turned into Boston Medical Center, but then it was the City Hospital. And we were taking books to the kids in the clinic, kids in the hospital, and just watching what happened with the parents and the kids. And we observed the parents getting excited when their children turned on to books. We observed that if we went into the waiting room and started looking at books with the toddlers there, all the parents in the waiting room would pay attention, and they'd start looking at books with their kids. So we discovered, we meaning me and a group of early childhood educators, discovered that this was a powerful tool to bring into a medical setting. But it came out of a collaboration.
That's pretty cool.
And the philosophy is, of course, that there isn't health and education. There's global wellness.
Right.
Education is a healthy brain.
Right.
Right? You can't have a healthy brain unless you're educated.
Right.
Right. So that was Reach Out and Read. The giving out of the book really was secondary.
Okay.
The main thing that we were trying to do was to bring books into a medical setting, first in the waiting room, and then back into the exam rooms. And then we realized that with the book in the exam room, as doctors, we were able to have conversations with parents about their little babies when they grew up to be in college. In other words, here's this little baby, and now we're talking about the love of books and what that's going to mean for that child. And what we learned was that parents hold these incredibly powerful dreams for their kids, and they often don't even speak of them, as though if you were to talk about it, it would somehow make it go away.
Right.
So now you have a doctor saying, how about that dream that you have for your child? Look what he's doing with that book right now.
Right.
And you'd see the parents become just alive.
Right.
Tapping into that incredibly powerful drive has been wonderfully rewarding for me as a doctor and for all of the doctors who do this. This is why we do it. It brings energy to us that we need, and also I hope to our patients too.
So with that, the doctors and the nurses handing out books and just talking about the importance of reading and that familial bonding, what are some of the most important messages that doctors should tell parents and caregivers about reading in general, reading aloud?
Yeah. Even before we get to the messages, maybe one of the most important things that we do is we point out what that particular child is doing with the book right then.
Okay.
Because when we call it out to parents, then parents can see it. So you take a little baby, they hold the book, they hold it and they move it from hand to hand, and they open it and they close it and they open it and they close it and they look at it and they put it in their mouth.
Right.
If you didn't know that that was really important exploring behavior, learning about the qualities of that object, figuring out how it works, you'd think that the kid was just holding a book.
Right.
It's much more than that. So what we do first off with parents is we say, look what he's doing, right? This is important.
So what would you say? So a parent is looking at the child. Well, the child just looks like he's nibbling on a cardboard book.
That's right.
What is actually happening there?
Yeah. So what's happening is the child is connecting perceptions. So they're connecting the look with the feel, with the taste of the book, with the response of the parent. They're noticing with the book, when they do this, if the parent gets excited, that this is an important thing. They don't notice it all at once, but time after time after time, those things build up.
I was just going to say, like building blocks to successful
That's
reading.
right. Which is how children learn everything. They don't learn it all at once. They
Right.
learn it by repetition over and over. And when we're working with parents, we don't give them one book.
Right.
We work with them with books at every visit. At 6 months and 9 months and 12 months, and 15 and 18. And as the child progresses, we call out different things. So the earliest children are just holding the book, but later they're looking at the pictures, they're patting at them, they're pointing at them, they're following a parent's point, so the parent says, look at that, and the child is looking. And then sometimes they're identifying something. Where's the doggy? And the child is going to the doggy. That kind of communication. And of course, that's just the beginning. The next thing is the parent says, what's that?
Yeah.
And the child says, the doggy.
Right.
And then the parent says, right, it's a big brown dog.
Right. So those adjectives.
So it's richer,
right?
right?
Right.
And then you talk about what the
Expanded.
dog is doing. And then you talk about why the dog is doing it. And then you talk about the whole story. And pretty soon, you're having a discussion at a very high level for a young child. And then the kid goes to school. And the teacher says, tell me about that book. And says, well, there's a dog, and he's doing this, and he's doing this, and this is why he's doing it.
Right.
And the teacher's like,
So descriptive words.
this is a genius,
Yes,
right?
right. Right.
Well, it's a kid who's learned how to put ideas together.
Right.
And when a child goes to school knowing how to put ideas together, the teachers respond to them as, this is a genius.
Right.
Which they are.
Yeah. I heard that it's important for a parent to continue to read with a child and having the child read aloud, have the parent read aloud. Why is that important still, even after the child learns how to read?
For a long time, parents can read at a higher level than the child can read, but at a level that the child can think. So parents can read a story that a child can understand and learn from, even though the child isn't yet fluent enough to read that story themselves. So for a long time, parents reading to children is a way of helping children get ideas
Yes.
and refine them with the help of their parent. Second reason it's really important is because it's shared enjoyment.
Yes.
And that doesn't stop just because you know how
Know
to read.
how to
In
read,
fact,
right.
we like to tell the story of children who pretend that they can't read
Oh,
so that they get to
that
have their parents
quality
read to them,
time.
right?
Yes, yes.
And then at a certain point, of course, kids are reading fluently and they don't need their parents. But reading to each other is a way that people express affection and love.
Yes.
And enjoy interesting and beautiful things together. And so that can continue forever.
So to close, Dr. Needleman, we know that reading and education, it's the key, it's the foundation, it's the gateway to the child's success. What would you say that reading or reading aloud in general, how can that help a child succeed in school and in life?
It's hard to imagine in this day and age many children succeeding who don't have mastery over reading. It just makes it much harder.
Right.
There are a few jobs that you can do, but fewer and fewer.
Yes.
Right? Even, basketball stars have to learn how to read those incredibly dense playbooks and understand all of those contingencies, right?
Right.
They're scholars,
Yeah.
right?
Even to read their contracts, for
They
goodness
got to read
sakes.
their contracts. Right? So it's hard to imagine success. And in fact, we know as a general rule that people who have mastery over reading are more successful and people who don't are more likely to have difficulties, really serious difficulties, and not be able to make enough money to live a decent existence without fear. So just at that basic level, it's really important, but also because we need people who are connected to ideas. And every kid has ideas. Those ideas become richer when they get to bounce off of all the other ideas in the world, which means they have to be able to read.
Yes.
And when they can do that, then those kids blossom.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Needlman. It is
It's
absolutely
really a
been a
pleasure.
pleasure.
Thanks,
yes,
Monica.
indeed. You've enlightened our families about the importance of reading and reading aloud, and you've shared with us the genesis of the Reach Out and Read program. We thank you very much.
Really my pleasure.
Thank you.